So if you guys watched my last video, you would know that I did this. Put a eBay cold air intake on my 95 C1500 Silverado. So this is the update. I've drove the truck for about a week now and I heard a vacuum leak. You would think that it would be your PCV or something like that. So pop the hood. Nothing's leaking. And it kind of took me a minute, and I got to looking and I remembered that I just put a cold air intake on it. So right here where this seats, the hat for your throttle body was lifted up, and it sounded like the worst leak I've ever heard on a vacuum system. And I noticed my truck wasn't running too good, so I took the top hat off, looked it over and everything, and it turns out the inner bore on that is just a fraction smaller than the OEM breather. So I took it off and I dremeled the back of it because that seems to be where it was hitting, like the back half. What I did, I just went off these little marks right here and followed them around to the bottom and kind of went off that. And actually my buddy Dustin did it for me because I suck with a Dremel, but just go around it. I think he hit it like 4 or 5 times, and I kept just putting it back on and seeing if it fit. And after about, I don't know, 10 minutes of trying to get it to fit, I got it to seat right. And I don't know how I didn't catch this when I was doing it, because honestly I would have thought I would have called it, because I listened for leaks and in my head it sounded fine. So I'm wondering if, because it did sound fine, if my old one wasn't leaking too and I just didn't notice it. So that may have been it. I don't know. I never did build a bracket for this, so I'm probably going to build a bracket for it real fast just to stabilize it. I mean, it's tight and it's not going anywhere, but this is just in case. I'll build a bracket for it, stabilize it, and go from there, and I'll show you guys what I had to do on the bottom of it. Alright, so pretty much what I did is I took a Sharpie and went around the bottom of this, and wherever it rubbed off, that was where it was hitting. So we just kept doing that and we finally got it to where you can see where we dremeled it around the back side here. And it's kind of abnormally shaped, but it seals now. That's the main part. So I just, like I said, just took a Sharpie, did around the very edge, and kept working back until it just didn't hit anymore. And at the end of the day, we finally got it to where it cleared everything. Another thing with the hose clamps that came with this are garbage. So I like to make sure everything's, you know, tight. And I drove the truck for a day, come outside and just looked over everything, and this one was tight, but I went ahead and replaced it anyways. But these two had worked loose from maybe 45 minutes of driving, like I guess just the vibrations and stuff. But these come with, I guess, just crappy Chinese hose clamps, so don't use those. Go ahead and get different ones. I mean, I think I gave $3 for all of these at my local parts store. So just go ahead and, first things first, change that out and check clearance on the bottom of this bad boy, because that will cause a problem. And I'm gonna try to figure this bracket out, and I'll be right back. Here's the bracket that came with the kit. I bent it down and I was gonna put it back here where my dipstick bracket mounts up to. What is it? Something just flew my arm. But I was gonna mount it back here where my dipstick bracket mounts up to, but in the process of bending it, it got all these crazy lines in it. So I'm just gonna start fresh with something else. So from the jump, that bracket's crap, so don't even try that. But other than that, as far as like the performance thing with it, me personally, the only difference I can tell is throttle response. Obviously, if your motor breathes better, it's going to perform better. And to me, the throttle response does seem, it's like it's snappier, but as far as like low end and high end torque and all that, it's not that big of a difference for you to actually feel. But the throttle response is actually cleaner, and you can hear it, but since I've found that it was leaking in the back, I'm thinking most of what I was hearing was a leak, because I don't really hear it that much now. So that's just one thing you have to take into consideration whenever you're buying cheap eBay parts. They're not always going to be a great fit. You might have to do some stuff to them. I'm all about some cheap parts though. So if you guys know anything else you can do to these TBI Chevy motors that's cheap, shoot, throw it down in the comments. I'll put it on there and I'll test it so you don't have to. And I mean, that's just really an update video. Just make sure that it's clearance right in the back on the top hat, and that's pretty much it. But I think I said this in my last video, it really says that these are specifically made for the TBI Chevy motors. I think they're more of a universal fit. I think you can put these on carbureted motors and whatever you want. But the only reason I really think they're universal and they sell it under so many different truck categories and motor categories is because there's only one port for your there's only one port for this to go into, and it's in the exact wrong spot. So if you watched my last video, I went over how to fix this and still have it work and everything. Like I said though, cheap parts equals a little bit more work to get them to work, and probably not as much performance, but it is what it is. So until next time guys, we'll see you later.